Well, picks and bans kicking off. No changes yet from either squad. Graves, Lucian, Syndra, Hecarim.
Okay.
Unicorns of Love committing to the same strategy they have done in the 2 previous games. And the final ban from SK will be the Cassiopeia.
From the Unicorns. Yeah, there was not really a whole lot to talk about there from Unicorns of Love. So SK Gaming in this situation, you're still going to have that Z, which PowerOfEvil is going to have to pick Cho'Gath into. If we look at the recent picks from him, we obviously don't know if there's the likes of an Urgot for him. SK Gaming does have the last pick, so you don't need to show your mid laner at this point. Top lane is fine to pick here. Seeing as Morgana has been taken away, Maokai has been normally the go-to one, but then you get that bad situation where you can't really engage. Shyvana also, Freddy.
Well, this is something we talked about on Freddy.
I like that.
We were discussing his Hecarim and the lack of home guard the few times we've seen it. There's no smite yet.
It's gonna come, don't worry.
All right, God, just saying. But it kind of fits Freddy's playstyle.
Yeah.
He likes to push, he likes to duel. With the burnout, he's even going to be able to roam between lanes if he needs to move instead of
Exactly. And he can also invade into the enemy jungle. If a lot of things are going on the bottom side of the map, that's where Freddy normally likes to really get in and take away camps from the other jungler. He can do this on the Shyvana, now also swapped over to the Smite, obviously. And then Gragas, different style for Svenskeren compared to what we normally see. No Rek'Sai in Italy, at least in the early power. Gragas, though, give him a few levels, around level 5 and level 6, he becomes very strong himself. And obviously going to be a bit more late game focused, though, in this case with Shyvana with the Cinderhulk and then the Gragas. So double tank setup already from SK. There's the Udyr, which was used against Gambit a few times.
Super early lock-in this time round. Udyr, of course, did well into those low damage compositions when he knew what he was up against. I'm not sure. I think SK have got a deep enough champion pool that can play around this. Let's see what they opt. And Vardags again for the Jinx.
Well, you can say that with the 2 early picks from SK, they're not looking to punish you very early on in the game, where Udyr wants to sit and power farm with his Phoenix stance and get a few tanky items before he really wants to start dueling people, because his early game when you max your Phoenix stance is not the strongest in terms of overall damage you provide in let's say, a gank. That's where Gragas is going to match him fairly well, so that makes sense for Kikis. He doesn't have to worry about being invaded by Nidalee or Rek'Sai, which will destroy him in the jungle from Svenskeren. So just make the pick okay for him. Let's see what he can pull off. The Jinx is still there. You got the Morgana Jinx combo, the burst, the double CC, a triple CC in this situation for the Unicorns of Love, which they're running every single game. We're back to game 1 in the bottom lane matchups.
Same duo lanes this time round.
Yeah. Quick recap of what happened.
Difficult time with that black shield for nRated.
That is true, unless he makes sure he gets the black shield used and then he has the bubble ready beforehand. What happened last time was Svenskeren came down on Rek'Sai with a very early gank, which put Forgiven and nRated in a very good situation. They kept pushing the lead in that lane, had quite a CS lead, and then we hit level 6 on Jinx Morgana. We had the all-ins, we had the TPs, and that turned it around. Vardags picked up like 3 fairly early kills for himself, so despite losing in farm, he got so much gold from the kills. And PowerOfEvil on Orianna, the champion which Gambit decided to gift him 4 kills at 16 minutes. 6 minutes later, 22 minutes, he had a death cap, a Void Staff, and an Athene's. He was the most fed Orianna I've seen in a long, long time. SK Gaming is not looking to do the same. That would be pretty bad at least.
Interesting for Chachi, opting into the Sion over the Maokai, despite it being available. There's a very heavy, beefy front line. There is team fight power.
It's a kite comp.
There's a lot that Unicorns can do with this comp.
Yeah, the reason he goes for Sion here, not the Maokai, is with Sion you can kite back with your team and you can use your Q to kind of zone them away, because you always have to respect that knockup that comes in. You have to slow from your E as well. So Unicorns of Love here, same comp they ran against Gambit, almost the same at least. Very kite focused. I think it's identical, honestly. You have Orianna, Morgana, disengage, kite back. You got Udyr, which main job is to run around and just hit people in the face and allow you to kite. He's not going to solo out your AD carry. He's not going to be a main engage either. No, he's kite, kite, kite. Unicorns has built a composition that is very slow at scaling up, but once it hits its power spike, the big team fights is so tough unless you get onto one of the carries instantly. and kill them, because otherwise they're gonna kite you for days and they have so much sustained damage through Orianna and Jinx.
Well, for SK Gaming, they're going to be locking in that Cho'Gath for the mid lane. We'll be seeing that for the first time on Fox, the split, gaining some popularity.
Like that.
And tell me why not.
Cho'Gath is really weak against comps that can kite him, where he doesn't have the all-in potential, because in order for him to one-shot a target, well, then he needs someone who jumps in towards him, let's say an Ahri, who goes in near him. He gets to silence them, eat them with the feast, ignite, and you kill them. In this situation, you're going to have Orianna and Jinx sitting very far back. You're even going to have a black shield to stop his Q from even connecting. And this simply means the Cho'Gath can get kited around by the Orianna slow, by the Udyr stunning him over and over. You never want to use your combo on Udyr or Sion in the team fights. So it's going to be very tough for him to find the right target unless you get a very good flank from the likes of Shyvana or Gragas that basically pulls someone near you. Then you get your silence, then you get your feast, and you get to one-shot them. But for that to happen, you need vision control, and you need the Unicorns of Love to put themselves in a bad situation.
Well, if there's anybody that's going to find those flanks, it's going to be Svenskeren and Freddy. There's your team comps, Shyvana and Gragas. Hashtag SK win, hashtag UOL win. UOL, 90% of the fan vote in the previous game. Let us know who you think will bring this to match point as we load up onto the Rift for the third time today, and the only time the Unicorns will be sporting the blue colors. Just such a pity they did not pick Udyr in this game.
Not falling for it this time.
Jat was so disappointed that we missed that joke.
That was such a bad moment.
And we were so embarrassed.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be 2 tweets, and he was going to say, oh, a shame they didn't pick Udyr in game 1. I was like, ah, ha, ha, blah, blah. And then it was a joke. We completely missed it. Anyway, that was a sad moment of the life of Trevor, QuickShot Henry, and Martin Deficio. Because you were on it too. You didn't get the joke either.
I did not get it. The only thing is you looked worse because I read the tweets and then you kept talking. But yeah, I did not get it at all.
All right, Techno.
Let it breathe. And around the world, 100,000 people started bobbing their heads. My producer's saying he did. Ah.
Damn,
I like that. Some guy in the audience is like, boo, I like you. You deserve a high five. Defensive start, no deep wards, no invades. Standard Are we expecting lane swaps yet, Deficio?
No, we're going to get standard lanes as well. Obviously, because we're in this current meta where you take everything away from your jungler, we're going to have the bottom lane take one camp, we're going to have the top laners take another one. And the poor junglers is going to sit back and do nothing.
Yay! So let's find out which jungler can make the most of the early game.
I'm so surprised about this Cho'Gath pick, because whenever I talk to some of the mid laners in the LCS, they're like, yeah, we never want to pick him if we can get kited around, if there's not like a clear target we can one-shot. And this was the last pick from SK Gaming coming in. Let's see if they can do anything in the laning phase. Obviously, back to their game 1 kind of strategy in terms of pick comps sorry, in terms of the composition and the play style from SK, not the 1-3-1 assassin mid lane, roam around the map. No, this is very team fight focused for both teams. And then you obviously have the double smite now on SK Gaming, which you can use if you get a lead in your lane to start invading in on the jungler. But Orianna and Cho'Gath, that's going to be a bit of a farm lane.
Oh, nRated gets caught by another skill shot early, but there's not enough damage this time around. Here
the level 2!
Kikis, level 2! No flash bear slap today, but nRated forced to flash away defensively after eating a Hylissang binding. Got to be very, very careful to not get caught out like we saw in the previous game. But does have some sustain, burning through those biscuits and healing up as best he can.
Here's the downside though, if you go for this level 2 gank in the bottom lane. You show yourself on the map, so Svenskeren now can pick where does he want to go and which camps can he take. Luckily for Kikis, then Svenskeren didn't start on the blue buff, and therefore he gets to take one as well. And Svenskeren started his own blue, he'd obviously just run across the map, potentially been able to steal it away from Kikis. But that is not the case here. So both junglers are taking each other's camps and buffs. One extra one here for Sven with the Grom still alive on the top side.
Well, we'll see who can continue to grow their lead. Fox farming up defensively against PowerOfEvil. He's using that command attack just to bully the little miniature Cho'Gath. Of course, Cho's passive is going to keep him relatively well sustained, so not feeling the pressure yet. carnivore powers, and we do see the wave being pushed back means PowerOfEvil no longer at risk of pushing past his own river.
And we're most likely going back to the game one fairly passive early game in terms of what we expect to happen. There's a lot of fights going on, but none of the laners have any clear-cut kill pressure on each other. Farm lane in the mid lane, you got that shield from Orianna, you're gonna go for Athenes, so the one-shot potential of the Cho'Gath goes down. In that sense, Vardags and Hylissang, they want to wait for level 6 before they start going for any all-ins. And of course, the two big tanks in the top lane should never really be at threat of dying to each other either. It's going to be about the junglers instead. Sven already got an early pink ward. As always, focus on the bottom side. Leave Freddy on his own on these tanks here. You want to secure your mid and your bottom lane. First gank onto PowerOfEvil here.
Svenskeren's bringing presents, and it's going to do a little bit of damage. I did think more was going to happen. PowerOfEvil able to block a lot of that damage with his Command Protect. All of a sudden, Kikis almost ran into Svenskeren. Still got his flash available, level 3 this time round.
Didn't get a sweeper on
and
the first
turtle.
back.
There's no flash for nRated, but Kikis is right on top of a ward. And the bubble's going to give away the position. A couple of auto attacks plus that explosive charge means Kikis is not going to be able to set anything up. And this time round, given an nRated, grabbing some control of this lane despite that early dark binding that caught nRated out.
And we might see a little bit of a fight over the river here on the bottom side soon. Kikis had a pink ward. I was expecting him to try and place it where Svenskeren put down his, and then you had the 2v2 going on. But obviously because PowerOfEvil is falling slightly behind in the lane, is almost out of mana, you couldn't really contest it had you placed it, so you had to go for the very defensive one, which was spotted by SK, and with them also pushing the bottom lane, they get to clear it out. So this is simply because of their lane match, or because of the matchup in the middle lane going in favor of SK, then Unicorns of Love had to go for defensive first pink. It's the small things, but it matters. Now you can see how there's an easy route for Svenskeren to gank if you want to go down near the dragon and then towards the mid lane again.
We'll keep a close eye on whether or not Svenskeren can have that impact. He's level 4 at the moment. We touch on how Gragas can do very well as the game progresses. Kikis, rather, Vizicsacsi gets jumped on by Freddy. And nothing comes of that particular bout.
And that's the thing, if you look late game, both comps have great scaling. I will give it to Orianna late game though over Cho'Gath, which is going to be the only difference. But we have the double tank, you got disengaged support coming in, you got 2 late game carries for both Forgiven and Vardags. It's going to be all about what can the Cho'Gath do in these team fights later on in the game. Can he get onto a target? Can they get a flank in that opens up for an opportunity where he can see someone?
There's the gank you talked about, Deficio. There's no explosive charge, but it may not be needed. Vardags and Hylissang very deep up the lane. Black Shield is on. Where is the bubble? Darkbinder, Cat's nRated on the background. Black Shield's not going to be enough. Vardags forced to flash and heal, but does make it out. Here comes Kikis. Nothing else will be able to follow, but successful gank. Burning the summoner spells of Hylissang. Keep in mind, Forgiven did use the flash there, though.
Just a very good read from SK Gaming. They knew the pink ward was there earlier in the tri-bush, and that was cleared, and they had their own ward, so they saw the Unicorns never placed a new one. So there was an opening. At the same time, you had the pink in mid, and you had the Rift Scuttlers being alive. Svenskeren knew there was nothing that could spot him going in for that gang. Now a dragon as well. You force a few summoners bot lane, you might get one of them back to base, in this case Vardags, and you get yourself a free dragon. This is all being built up from the vision control SK Gaming got in the early game that set up that gank here for Svenskeren.
The advantage then to SK in this third game. Forgiven and nRated still sticking around in lane. Vardags has been able to return. It looks like nRated has started to back off. As we take a look, top lane, 62 CS to 63. Freddy actually opting to start with that Barmy Cinder. Get some more AoE, get some more wave pushing power. And we're just going to continue to farm up. A lot of tankiness between the respective top laners, and it is just this farm fest until we start seeing those teleports really coming into play. Hylissang, first time leaving that lane, knowing that Forgiven and nRated were away, means he can get rid of that pink ward that stood for several minutes.
He knew it was there as well, was expecting it. And this top lane here, I should just talk about how it is a bit of a farm fest in the start, but Shyvana wants to be in these lanes here. She wants to be picked into tanks like Sion and Maokai, because you get that percent damage from your Flame Breath. You can even, if you want to, focus on spray pushing, build a Blade of the Ruined King, which simply makes you win every single duel against the tanks. Up in that top lane, you're going to get that 20% damage reduction, the true damage from a skirmisher's saber as well. So everything in that case will go in your favor. It's just harder for you to start a fight than it is for Sion, who obviously just pops his ulti and should at least get close to someone and can start a fight.
Definitely more close than hitting. But nevertheless, we do see Forgiven's come back to lane. He opted for the BF sword and the long sword. And you were touching on how both of these AD carries can be super impactful as the game progresses. If you were going to have a late scaling AD carry in your team, I want Forgiven driving it, because he always CSs effectively. And in that previous game on Caitlyn, his positioning was simply sublime. Let's see what he can do with Tristana this time around. Got off to an even start. Svenskeren sticking around with his ultimate, but the wave is pushing quite heavily, so I'm not expecting anything from that just yet.
And let's see if Unicorns use these 2 pings around the mid lane. 3 pings even. They're completely secured PowerOfEvil to just sit and farm. They're going to spot Svenskeren when he moves close. If they want to use it, however, then they need the Cho'Gath to start pushing the lane. Otherwise, you can't really do a whole lot with them. Not even going to be able to contest it because Kikis was back in base. So Svenskeren gets the first one for himself. The most important one, and it is, as somewhat expected, a farm fest here in the start between the teams. It's going to be more about the big team fights near a dragon as one of the main objectives in this game before we really start seeing a lot of action happening.
Well, interesting to note, SK have the scaling comp. Kikis are sticking around middle. The shockwave comes out, but honestly, not a whole lot came from that. Fox has already got 6 stacks on that Cho'Gath, if I'm reading that correctly. A lot of hit points to burn through, 1,900 at level 9. Very, very beefy indeed. And of course, in game 1, SK picked a scaling team comp. It did not work out effectively for them then. And the reason it's interesting to note is it is a departure from the traditional split games, the style that got them to 15-3. And we'll see if they can handle themselves better now in this 3rd game in a best of 5.
Freddy talked about in the opening feature here, saying we have more than one play style. And they are showing here, they're not just relying on assassins and 1-3-1 split pushing. If it works for them, that's what we're going to have to see later in this game here, if they could pull off these team fights at all. Hylissang not connecting.
No, not this time around.
Very even most lanes. SK, though, as we tend to see them, do get a small CS lead. I mean, Forgiven against Vardags. Forgiven's average CS at 10 minutes compared to the other AD carry over 18 games in the regular split was plus 12 for him. So he was on average 12 CS ahead at 10 minutes. That's insane. Nobody was even close to him. I think Freeze was like number 2 and he was like 4 CS ahead at 10 minutes. Vardags was on average down 4 or 5 CS. So obviously it's a bit of a mismatch in terms of AD carries in the laning phase, and as we often see, Forgiven is ahead. Not by a whole lot. And now we have to see if Hylissang and Vardags can go for some of these all-ins.
Statistically, it's going to grow because at 20 minutes, Forgiven gets to 23 CS ahead. Vardags falls 16 CS behind. That is a very, very large disparity. But no kills just yet. Still waiting for first blood. And despite that first Dark Binding earlier, Hylissang has not had the same level of impact that we've come to see. PowerOfEvil out of mana, just using that shockwave to try and get some pressure on Fox, or try to keep him behind, but really not in a great position at the moment.
No, and these ping wards here being placed from the Unicorns, invested a lot of gold into them. Actually just smacking into the wall. I think he was expecting a bit of a dive here, maybe taking damage from the W of Freddy and then trying to stun him on the tower. But these ping wards here that you invested gold into from the Unicorns of Love have done nothing. They haven't been able to defend them whenever Svenskeren cleared them out. And the gang's mid lane, well, you have an Athene's only... not an Athene's, Chalice only Orianna with no mana. So you had no kill pressure on the Cho'Gath either. And simply these ping wards, just a lot of gold invested for honestly nothing for the Unicorns of Love.
Well, so far Fox is doing a great job on this Cho'Gath. Got a CS advantage. You could maybe say expected against an Orianna. Going to be a farm lane, so praise to him for mechanically doing a good job.
The difference is Cho'Gath gets a lot of mana back himself, where Orianna, in order for her to try and push it back, she needs to invest a lot of mana. That's why PowerOfEvil was out of it, and that's why he's slightly behind in farm. Let's see what Svenskeren can do. There's no ulti because he used it on the Raptor, but the big deal here is the fact that Freddy on Shyvana, as we talked about against these tanks with the percent damage from her E, with the skirmisher saber giving some extra true damage as well, you can keep pushing that lane here. He's been the guy winning it. He's the guy giving the small lead to SK Gaming now with that first tower, and you can keep pushing down for the next one. Get a deep ward in near the blue buff, and you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna be ganked by an Udyr.
Well, simply put, SK Gaming. Oh! Was that animation stolen? I think Vardags stole the crab. He did! That's a blue crab. Vardags nicked that one. Kikis is gonna back away. I was saying before that little cheeky play, SK Gaming is pulling an advantage in every single lane. They had a CS advantage, AD carries just recently went even out. Mid lane's winning, top lane's winning, towers fallen, dragons already secured. Everything considered, SK has got a strong early game. We do see the Chilling Smite comes out, the Flash Dark Binding connects on Svenskeren. Black Shield is up, the Shockwave does not connect.
That was everything.
And Svenskeren body slams over the wall. Didn't even need to flash, but they did get Fox's flash thanks to the Dark Binding.
But this gives SK Gaming now an opening to start their dragon if they want to. They know there's no ulti on PowerOfEvil. He's no mana either. Blue buff is alive, so if they see him leave the lane, they might just expect him to be at that blue buff, and then you can once again go for the dragon when you know he's on the opposite side of the map. There's a lot of ultis invested. Flash as well from Hylissang onto a Gragas, who just body slammed the wall.
Yeah, managed to get out clean. Shockwave maybe a second late.
Here's the dragon, here's the Orianna on blue buff.
As you touched on in the previous game, in fact, Deficio. Once the team starts blue, they forego control of the pit.
Especially when their mid lane is out of mana, he doesn't really have a choice. He can't fight. He needs that blue buff to sustain himself.
Oh, Super Mega Death Rocket went in a little awry, despite even having vision. Svenskeren was just able to sidestep that one, so ultimates and cooldowns being blown. And it's SK that secured Dragon number 2 at 15 minutes. That's relatively early if they want to go for the 5-Dragon victory. They do have great control and they do have great team fights in that pit, especially considering UOL ideally want to be kiting back, as you've highlighted many times in picks and bans.
It's going to be the main objective of their compy, and then you wait for Hylissang to land a binding, and you pile all this CC just onto one guy. Freddy even took the blue buff away from PowerOfEvil. SK Gaming is a bunch of bullies. PowerOfEvil is not having a great time.
Definitely not. But on an Orianna, you kind of expect that. It is a champion that scales up. You don't tend to think of Orianna having that great.
No, but that's why you need that blue buff. This is one of the good things about having Smite on your top laner, is if you're in this situation where there's 0 kill pressure on you from an out-of-mana Orianna and a Sion, you can roam into that enemy jungle, you can contest these buffs here, take away some of their camps, and then you just get so strong in the late game where everything starts stacking up for you, which obviously is the whole goal here for Freddy and SK, and they can be super happy with how this early game has gone, because they're getting all the farm they need. So got the dragons.
Deficio, I have to ask now, we're approaching 20 minutes. No kills yet, no indication that either team even is looking for a team fight. What do each respective squad have to do to start getting advantages and take control of the game? As it stands,
I would go dive the Jinx, because she's immobile. While she does have a black shield, and you need to make sure you can see where the people are. You can move away from PowerOfEvil. This fight here is not going to do a whole lot, because again, PowerOfEvil doesn't have a lot of mana. Shockwaves though.
Shockwave hits 2 feet.
Might have been lying to you, Trevor.
The Feral Scream doesn't connect. It's Kikis that gets first blood. Vizicsacsi comes in and he takes down Sancta. Wow. 2 kills for Unicorns of Love. You don't need to dive when Unicorns are able to respond to an invade and get 2 kills.
Yeah, we just saw what SK Gaming wanted to do. They wanted to move to the bottom lane when PowerOfEvil was fairly low on mana and go for a play on the bottom lane. But then they get into 2v2. It's gonna be 1 at least. They're going for next. They got the Jinx. There's gonna be 2 towers sitting there saying, nothing is gonna happen. Shockwave gets pulled in, and suddenly 2 guys dies. 2 towers dies as well. This was their exact opposite of what SK Gaming wanted to happen.
Unicorns of Love run Udyr and Orianna, go even or behind, and then somehow get gifted some kills. The same happened against Gambit to a much larger degree, let's be honest. But SK trying to just ward up the jungle, and it's Unicorns that responded. Talk me through this one.
Right, so basically what's happening here is SK sees PowerOfEvil being low on mana. They think they can make a play on the opposite side or down the bottom side of the map where he won't be able to roam down with them. But because they're just running around in the damage from PowerOfEvil and of course the damage from Kikis with this Phoenix stance, when he gets enough time and he has a Cinderhulk as well, he will slowly get you down. And we saw why Cho'Gath has problems if he cannot get that one-shot combo off. It was flashed away, there's no damage on PowerOfEvil. Fight for unicorns.
And that's something you highlighted as a major, major factor in picks and bans, not liking the Cho'Gath because he doesn't want to use Feast on an Udyr. He doesn't want to use it on the front line of Udyr and Sion.
And if he doesn't have Flash, he's going to get stunned and slowed on the way to that back line of Unicorns of Love late game, and he's never going to get a target to Feast. That's one of the reasons, but I think what SK were doing, they could have done it 30 seconds later. PowerOfEvil would have been out of mana by then if they just kept pushing in the mid lane. And then you went for that roam to the bottom lane. You went for the dive potentially on the Jinx. And you got a bot lane tower for it. And that's how you would start snowballing it because you knew the out of mana Orianna would be able to follow. PowerOfEvil had enough to fight right here. And that's what backfired for SK.
Well, 20 minutes on the clock. Let's take stock. 2-0 in kills. 3-2 in towers. As Unicorns of Love knock down the bottom lane outer. Dragon is up in a minute and a half, and it's SK that have had complete control of the pit. But without the towers in and around that area, maybe Unicorns could set up some vision. We'll see if they decide. They have littered wards in the river, as well as 2 pinks, in fact. And Freddy has teleport where Vizicsacsi does not. So keep an eye on that. Ooh, Faith is wavering. That was 90-10 in the previous game. Now it's 69-31.
Still, the last few minutes for SK here has not been good for them. They lost 3 towers, gave over 2 kills. Now PowerOfEvil finally gets a blue buff as well, which is going to stop SK from just pushing down his mid lane over and over, draining his mana, and then making plays on the map. Also being able to go back to base.
That's a lot of items. Needlessly large rod,
Definitely coming in
plus
soon.
Blasting Wand. Also something to note, Vizicsacsi, Frozen Heart plus Spirit Visage Kikis, as well as the Frozen Heart, to try and counter both Shyvana and Tristana. Both get a lot of auto attacks off in a team fight.
It's also because both of them really want cooldown reduction, which is obviously like this. Often the trade, do you want Randy and Zoman, do you want Frozen Heart? And there's a lot of things which matters here. Randy and Zoman with the HP is great with the Cinderhulk, but cooldown reduction is so important on an Udyr and a Sion, because all you have to do is peel for your carries, and you need multiple stuns coming in, knockbacks or knockups, and you need slows.
So important. The tidal wave used as the dragon spawns, not going to be available for the fight. Kikis is running into Forgiven. The bubble does connect. Well spot played there as Vizicsacsi runs straight into a wall. Rocket Jump was the only thing used from Forgiven to get away. Take a look at the command attack, trying to zone away members of SK. Vizicsacsi, explosive charges on his Kikis, does get a stun onto Freddy. Here comes Freddy, Dragon's Descent. We do see the binding onto Fox, that's going to keep him in play. Kikis knocked back by the barrel. Shockwave onto 2 tanky members of the team. Svenskeren is the first to fall. Reply with Freddy. Here comes Fox. Bubble onto PowerOfEvil. Command Protect keeps him alive. Forgiven, finally the focus. Does get caught by the zap, and Vardags is trying to run him down. Is going to throw down the Scrying Orb. Command distance for the movement speed. Zap flashed away. Unicorns of Love get 3. SK unable to get to the carries.
Yes, and this is exactly what we were talking about in the pick and ban phase, and why SK Gaming is going to be in problems in this game here. Notice the difference between PowerOfEvil and then the likes of a Cho'Gath in the fight like this here. Let's see it again. The 2 tanks on the front from Unicorns of Love, that's great positioning. Even Shyvana doesn't get a flank, so there's nothing really hitting on Vardags or PowerOfEvil at this point. Cho'Gath on the other side. Kikis just stays alive as well, and you can see how SK Gaming is simply unable before the very end here. PowerOfEvil gets knocked up, moves into it, then gets bubbled. We get the Feast finally, but it's not enough, and you simply had no damage on these carries here in the back line. You couldn't get to them.
Unicorns of Love come out with another team fight victory. They get themselves a dragon. And we did catch just in that little picture-in-picture that Vardags almost got blown up by Forgiven. But it was not to be the case. Forgiven still with a sizable CS advantage. This guy does not CS at anything lower than 10 CS a minute minimum. And when you see Kikis even able to defend the Gromp, I believe. Vizicsacsi's going to catch Freddy. Hylissang's going to root him in place. There is no Dragon's Descent yet. PowerOfEvil's running down with the red buff. And it will be PowerOfEvil that secures his 3rd kill of the game, as well as that death cap. Freddy, unfortunate this time around to get caught on that counter jungle.
Yeah. And all the Unicorns of Love have to do now is whenever they decide to fight around an objective, make sure you have proper vision control so you can see the TP coming in from Shyvana. She's the only one who can flank in behind you, get to your carries properly, and actually lose your team fight. So whenever the next dragon spawns, look for Unicorns to move down 90 seconds before. Defensive pink wards, so you can see if there's any wards behind your carries that they can teleport to, and then ward into the entrance of the blue buff, and you see SK walking in towards you, and you just decide to fight because your late game is absolutely fantastic. You already got a big goal lead. You don't have to take any chances anymore. As long as you see the Cho'Gath and the Shyvana TP, you're fine.
Wow, tower's gone, and Freddy's not even able to complete the teleport. Deficio, we're 25 minutes in. The Morgana pick has impacted picks and bans, and it has encouraged a scaling comp from both teams, as it did in Game 1. In Game 1, Unicorns had a near flawless control game. They played the objective smart, they didn't fall too far behind in the laning phase. It seems that in this series, when SK is playing these slower, stallier late game comps, it's Unicorns that has the edge. In Game 2, where it was chaotic in early game and more determined for SK to make aggressive plays, SK seem more at home.
I feel like it's just that SK Gaming is making 1 or 2 big mistakes in the pick and ban phase when they want to play these slow scaling comps. In Game 1, it was the fact they had 0 engage. Like that, the Maoka into Morgana. You're never going to start a fight against a heavy poke composition from the Unicorns of Love, which just sniped them down every single time. In this game, it's the fact you pick a Cho'Gath as the last pick against a very heavy kite composition where you need to completely outplay the other team in order to make this Cho'Gath work and get the kills on the carries. SK Gaming is not completely out of the game. They can still get that one shot. They can still get onto Vardags or PowerOfEvil. But they need Unicorns of Love now to make a mistake and outplay them, honestly, in order to get there. This game is Unicorns of Love's to lose at this point.
One of my favorite ways to explain a lead. It's their game to lose. Unicorns did make positional errors in the last game. Let's not forget that fact. And it did cost them. It did cost them 1 game in this best-of-5 series. Freddy may be caught out again. Look at all of the Unicorns around him. He's got his Dragon's Descent to get away. Let's see which direction he opts to use it. Kikis is sticking in the river, waiting for a reactive play from Freddy. Freddy's still holding onto that Descent. Kikis plus Morgana
mid here. They have to get mid tower.
The jungle. The rest of SK trying to maybe get Vardags. We did see the slow coming down. Freddy is out. It's Power that secures it. They're even in position to defend this middle turret. Will it be enough for the charge? No. Forgiven should blow that one up.
Yeah, he's going to get it.
He does secure the tower. That's actually a fair trade. If SK can get away, that will be the question. Tidal Wave is available and is being thrown down. Svenskeren is now being locked up. Roar of the Slayer, not going to connect, but it's not needed. 2 kills for a tower. That is still an advantage to SK if they can protect anything else.
No TP from Freddy here, so he's not going to be able to come down with a flank. And you're going to have to see their members of SK walking in near this Baron pit. Unicorns of Love with 2 quick kills. We even saw Hylissang. He tried to flash over the wall and block a body slam if it came in from Svenskeren. They should be able to secure this Baron here. Nothing SK can do other than maybe a flash feast.
Oh, knockup from the smash. We are not going to see Fox taking that because Vardags just crits him down. Baron secured 9-0. 6,000 gold in the advantage. And Unicorns of Love are just on a rampage. That early pick, Udyr, is doing work. The kiting comp, even able to run SK down when they have favorable circumstances.
And you saw when he picked it, Gragas and Shyvana had already been locked in, so he knew, okay, there's no early pressure on me on an Udyr. I can take it and just power farm in the jungle. He's very far ahead compared to Svenskeren. If you look at jungle farm, that's why you could take it in the second rotation. Wait with some of his carries here. Orianna came in then later on for PowerOfEvil. Forgiven now. He's finding himself in a lot of trouble. And Vizicsacsi shows no mercy.
Nope, none whatsoever. Teleport used for that kill though. Relatively big investment. Freddy's got his available. We do see him pushing top lane. The rest of Unicorns all grouping in the bottom, with the exception of PowerOfEvil, who's shoving out middle. Remember that middle turret dropped a long time ago. Svenskeren plus Fox, they're looking for Power. Power's still got his flash available. the dissonance speed, he's able to move away. Sven is on the turret in that top lane. The rest of Unicorns on the bottom lane. Kikis is tanking this one up. They should trade in a turret for in a turret. But now look, Hylissang has gone to help out PowerOfEvil. PowerOfEvil's been caught by the Ignite as well as the Feast.
Everything was used, yeah.
Is now in trouble. Command Protect is going to allow Hylissang to stick near Fox. The Shockwave plus Ignite, that should be Fox going down. Oh, it's going to actually sustain just a little bit through. Rocket!
Love it, man.
From all the way in the river, Inhibitor Turret is now the focus. SK are split. SK are not on the same page. Tidal Wave goes up and nRated, not able to find the target. Vardags is going to keep landing crit after crit. He takes Forgiven down, then turns to nRated. That's a double kill for Vardags. He is celebrating on the camera. And Svenskeren may be the next one to fall. Unicorns of Love taking out 2 inhibitors here. They've got Baron empowered minions. They will set their sights onto the Nexus, and they look to take the series 2-1. Not giving up a single kill. Hylissang 0-0-10. Morgana is so impactful in this series. I'll let the crowd sing it for us.
Yeah, I feel like we honestly talked about it already. In the pick and ban phase, the last pick coming with the Cho'Gath, big mistake, and the only way for SK to make it work was what they tried to do, where you want to push down the Orianna, you want to make sure she uses all the mana, and then you get a free roam down through the jungle, place a few D-bots, and you go down to that bottom lane. You have Tristana, who can then fast push down the tower, or you go and dive to Jinx Morgana. That's the way to use the Cho'Gath, which is what they tried to do. Did it a few seconds too early, so there was some mana on PowerOfEvil, got caught in that 2v2 fight, and that's where we just saw why Orianna is so good. And just kiting, you can never get to her.
And this is one of the very few times where we get to look at a team where, this is going to be a little abstract, but when you're explaining the decision-making and what people can do, you had discussed the dive for SK Gaming on the bottom lane, dive Jinx, not 30 seconds before that. And Unicorns were in place to defend against it. They still had the mana. It was a little bit of a poor execution. It's very rare that teams in the game may be reading the same scenario. You know, Unicorns of Love, having the ability to respond, you have to praise them for that.
Yeah, you have. And you have to remember that PowerOfEvil was the first mid laner to play Cho'Gath here in Europe. So he knows that matchup. He knows, okay, what can Cho'Gath do here to win the game? Okay, he needs to get out of this laning phase. He needs to get down and make a play somewhere while he can feast the target and one-shot them. So he was like most likely expecting all of this to happen because the laning phase was just going very slow for both. SK got 2 dragons as well. But the problem was, yes, you get 2 dragons. The next one, when it spawns, that's where you have this mismatch in terms of compositions where one guy can't really do anything. We saw the Cho'Gath just stand on the other side of a wall, not really adding a whole lot, where the rest of the Unicorns could kite. So it wasn't enough for SK just to win.
I also think SK have to reevaluate the Nami into Morgana. Game 1, there was not a lot of impact. It simply did not work out. You've already explained how the Black Shield and Bubble can interact with one another, but it's simply not showing through. And I feel there was some fantastic anti-engages in the mid-game in Game 2, but Tidal Waves had little to no impact. Bubbles, yes, look, the team fell behind. So, of course, as a support, you're not going to be game-changing when your whole team's behind. But I feel when you've got a player like nRated who can engage, maybe they need to look at something else to see what they can do in that role.
When it comes to that Morgana and Nami thing, I think it's more about the AD carries in this situation, because you pick Tristana, who's so weak in the early game, and the reason you pick Nami next to it is to give her somewhat of a safe laning phase, because Nami's so good in that lane. If you pick Nami and a Caitlyn, that lane is yours. You destroy it, because whenever Morgana Black Shields as well, especially in the early levels when it's only rank 1, you get rank 3 and you W from the Nami. That even breaks the Black Shield. Then you bubble after, or you just buff up your AD carry. So it's more the AD carry picking, making Nami have a very boring laning phase, I think it's fair to say, more than just the support picks themselves.
Well, we'll find out whether or not the teams agree with that as we get into Game 4. But before that, let's check in with the analyst desk for a look into Unicorn.